getting into the meat of things now, which is really great. But I think up to this point, we've covered a lot of just our protea basics, and just sort of unpacking all of that along the way. But with that said, the next part of the series, we are going to be delving into some of the more technical aspects, which I'm really, really excited about, because I think there are a lot of tools that can be really helpful to us.
I agree. And this one actually, the yeah, this one is definitely the meat of it. You said it, and I think that this is the very first thing that you and I are going to be looking at in terms of quality
Yeah.
control. And I this is it.
Yeah, quite. Yeah, we actually, I guess this is what you would call the business end, and that is, what kind of our bread and butter on a daily basis, being reconciliations. Um, there should have been a drum roll for that, but it is just such a massive, massive part of what we do. Um, you know, I mean, there's countless types of reconciliations that we do, and we'll be touching on some of the more common ones, some of the ones that we prepare most frequently. But once again, before coming back to our original, I guess you could say, like, sort of ethos in that is, well, we're doing all of these things, but why are we doing it? And where's the value in what we're doing, in what and how we're doing it? And so, sort of putting that hat on kind of makes it quite exciting in a way to sort of unpack the premise of a reconciliation, which I should, before the big caveat here, and we should get it out the way before we go any further. Um, I think Zane would be pleased to know this was the first order of business, but one needs to remember that a reconciliation is it's not reconciled if the difference is not zero. And that, as simple as it sounds, and that's why I'm always very my wording around these, please find attached, it's always bear that in mind, unless I can back it up with a zero difference at the end. But there are so many implications to the reconciliation, and it's not just a, again, box checking exercise.
No, it's not. And what's nice is that our recons are actually all mostly fairly simple. One of my first audits when I was in articles was NGen debtors, which was 2 to 3 months of audit work just on the debtors balance. So,
Jeez.
our recons are nice
Say
and
no more.
straightforward compared to that.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah,
if it's
that's
not zero.
yeah, brings, yeah,
But
yeah, they the yeah, if it's not zero.
And the thing is, we don't also want to make that difference zero. So if I got an inventory recon and I had no differences, that raises alarm bells as well. So having differences, yes, but we need to explain those differences and make sure that we understand the effect of those differences and what needs to be done for those differences if we have any action to be taken.
Absolutely. Absolutely agree with that. And that ties in with, you know, ultimately what is, there's, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of us, most of us using QBO, and this one is, I like to think about this one when discussing sort of like, what are we doing with this recon? What do we do with the recon once it's reconciled? And one of the things, I mean, we've got so many, like I say, great tools at our disposal. One of the things being simple enough, reconcile a bank account in QBO, especially if the bank feed is linked. Super simple. You go in, put in the ending balance date, and generally it gives you that pop-up different zero, yes. And because it's so simple sometimes, yeah, that's the reconciliation. Gone are the days. I mean, I know some of us do still experience maybe where you are doing a bit of manual work on a reconciliation and ticking off, but those are few and far in between. But sometimes it's reconciled so easily that we forget to actually look at the next step. And I like to think of a recon as having two very, very distinct parts. The first being stratifying and assimilating the data that is presented to you. And that is, what we go back to, what is a reconciliation? You are taking your data, whether it be QBO, whatever the case may be, your set of books, and you are comparing or validating that against the source data, external, third party source of information. So for a bank recon, it is the bank statement. We need to verify what's going on with the movement in our bank balance and what we're presenting. But that's only one element. Sure, we get to zero difference at the end. It doesn't stop there, because most reconciliations, when there are differences, they do require action. And even if they don't require action, they certainly require us perusing them and assessing the impact of those differences.
Precisely. And a lot of our clients, and certainly for me, a lot of my clients are owner run businesses and they don't have tons of money. So a bank recon where we have a difference, we really do have to look into it. And I do know that recently one of our clients wrote a check and it was for $110 and it was cashed out the bank for $11,000. And Cardio raised that, and they had the bank was alerted immediately because Protea was on it, and these things matter hugely. Just for our clients, even it might look like we're just ticking a box, but we got to put thought into what is happening here. Why hasn't this check cleared? What are the consequences of a bank reconciliation? What are the consequences for these uncleared items? How do they affect my client? It's not about how it affect us. It's how do they affect our clients, and communicating that in advance. And that's why we have the task in common. Communicate to your account manager what are the uncleared items. For example, if you have a deposit, a check, the client received the check, they're going to deposit it. It can be big, it can be small, but why hasn't that deposit cleared yet? And it's as simple as sending an email to the client, your account manager saying, let's let the client know, and it push it back to the client's court.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, that's exactly it. Is an action item that, we're not just leaving it at. And that's why I say sometimes we do get lulled into this. If I open Carbon, reconcile bank, and in Carbon, tasks will list follow up on long outstanding items, or sort of that follow up, because it is so easy to click reconcile, finish, and go about your business. I think what we need to remember, and probably one of the things that I would want to highlight the most, is the reconciliation does not stop once you've gotten to zero. And that is the important, because there is nothing worse than let's say it's months down the line and something could have been resolved easily, or easily enough at the time, or we could have alerted the client in a timeliest manner, and that same reconciling item is just rolling on that recon, and you get to year end, and all of a sudden somebody's asking questions, and you're now in a position where this item is so long outstanding, it becomes very difficult to sort of go back in time and try and unpack it. So, again, it is really just, what is the purpose of this reconciliation? What are we trying to do? We're not just verifying, does our balance agree? But we're looking at, if it doesn't agree, what's causing this, and how do
What
we
is the
resolve it?
why? Yes. And I do want to add to that before we wrap the session up. In, like you said, a few months, you're doing the recon now. If you have action items, a lot of those action items are going to be on the client, and all it takes is one email to tell the client.
Absolutely.
When it gets left for months and it just that reconciling items is just keeps appearing on a recon and not addressed, kicking the can down the road. Oh, it'll clear. It becomes our problem at the end of the
Yeah.
year, and then it's more work on our behalf and more uncomfortable conversations.
Yeah, broaching that subject so many months down the line, it is very, very, it can put you in a really tough spot. But with that said, I'm excited to go a little bit deeper in the next couple of parts of our series. We will be taking a look more specifically at inventory recons, because inventory really drives a lot of what most of us do on a daily basis. And I know it can be a tricky one to digest oftentimes. So I think that's a great one to look at. But really, just regardless of the recon, I think the message we are trying to convey is make sure that you're understanding the reconciling items, and make sure that you're not just stopping there. So if Zane says a recon is not reconciled if it's not zero, I'm going to add my catchphrase to it and say, you don't stop with the reconciliation just because it's zero. I think let's see if that one takes off. But yes, we have to do the investigating.
Now I'm going to add what are the action items and who needs to action it.
Okay, there we go. Let's see if we can get that to take off and certainly stick. But Candice, thank you so much. I look forward to getting into it a bit more in the next one.
Sounds great. Thanks, Michelle.